Welcome to the second annual Made in Hawaii Film Festival presented by the Hilo Hawaiian Hotel and Castle Resorts and Hotels. My name is Zoe Eisenberg and I'm MIF's Executive Director. I am extremely excited to be here with you this morning. MIF's mission is to spotlight films being made in and about Hawaii, and I am excited that we will be playing 35 films over the next 48 hours in this theater. Only in Hawaii. But first, I'm excited to introduce our guest speaker this morning. With 4 decades of experience as a cinematographer and multiple accolades, including a Cable Ace Award, a Cinematography Television Lifetime Achievement Award, and 2 Emmy nominations, let's give it up for Ron Garcia.
Thank you, Zoe. So, while I was thinking about what I was going to talk about, and it's supposed to be the art of cinematography, but the thing I want to start off with is that I worked on Hawaii Hilo in 2010. I've been coming back and forth to all the islands since 66, I think, 65, 66. And I was thinking about all the filmmakers here that you're about to see. And it reminded me of the journey that the Polynesians took from out to the unknown, and where they either were escaping or wanted to find new lands. They got in canoes and they came all the way out here and settled in all these different Pacific Island chains and Hawaii. And that's a tough journey. Those are really brave people. You start that journey, you have to pre-visualize your journey. And it reminded me that that's what these filmmakers are doing. That's what I did when I was a young filmmaker, how I got into the industry. And it was scary, exciting, and unknown, just like the Polynesians. So enjoy this film festival because it's pretty awesome. I've seen some clips and I think you're really going to be wowed by it, and I hope you see the whole 2 days of it. So I'm going to start my little presentation here with my journey, my first journey, which is this. My mother saved this picture that I'm going to put this here. How's that? Oop, there we go. So my mother saved this picture for me, and she kept it, and I didn't know she kept it. And we were destitute, but they just made enough money. They worked hard in the 30s, the late 30s, when they came out to California. My father's from Mexico. My mother's from Pratt, Kansas. She left a devastation and poverty in Kansas her older sister eloped and came out to California, met my father. So my parents were the I Love Lucy show. It was just, she would make fun of his accent, and he only went to the 4th grade, and she went to, I think, the 8th grade. They came out and worked hard, my brother and I, and so she kept this, and they didn't have enough money to, as I realized, you can see the brown paper, it was always brown. It was actually a shopping bag, because they couldn't afford a tablet for me. But it didn't matter. I didn't know we were poor. And we would share Crayolas, but we lived in courts, like LA has all these court things. And they were 3-room houses, a bedroom, a front room, of course a bathroom, and a kitchen, a little tiny kitchen. And the 4 of us lived in that house for about 11 years until they finally saved some money, worked hard, and bought a house, and we moved up to, my brother and I had a bedroom, and it was great. So, moving on here to what is the biggest thing that I ran into was film's not art here. in the United States. The social structure in the 60s, the 50s, the 40s, it was considered entertainment. You have to remember that film started in the Nickelodeon. And 5 cents, you look through and you crank this and the cards would flip. And then it turned into the palaces like this, where they paid 10, 15, 20 cents to see a vaudeville show and then a 10-minute reel. So in Europe, at the same time, film was an art form and accepted as an art form. And I feel that the United States now, in all the filmmaking, is now international, and I think we're finally being embraced that there is art in cinematography. So with that, we can turn off these lights and I'll let you. This is a clip from the ASC, the American Society of Cinematographers, which I belong to. So when you see films and the titles and the director of photography credit with ASC after their name, then they're a member. Right now there's about 500 of us in membership. And every time we have an award, every year, we have award dinner and they pass out awards, Best Picture, Best TV and series and that kind of stuff. I was lucky enough to be involved in some of those awards and I've been thrilled ever since. Here's a clip that they always show before we start our presentation. And it's past and present members of the ASC, which also is a reach out program. We're trying to reach out to internationally to those coming to our site. And there's master classes, there's educational classes, there's lighting classes, and they're all taught by us, the members. And it's really changed. So my hat's off to my organization, that's my plug, and here's their film. Can we turn this light down, or we have it? There we go. Oh, I gotta click it again.
I never thought we'd come to this. Here we have the star dressing room without a dresser.
Did anybody recognize any of those films? Okay. So, I'm going to just run through what, as I look back at my career, I'm going to just run through some slides that I found on Google of my neighborhood in Los Angeles. I lived in the center of Los Angeles, about a stone's throw from City Hall, which is now the smallest building in LA. Now there's all the skyscrapers. I lived close to Chinatown. And I take off, and this is the first thing I remember when I was looking back at my life. This is Washington Boulevard that would take us. My dad finally got a car in the 40s after the war, and he drove us there, and I was mesmerized by the structure of these oil wells. And you'll see what that did to me. There was the Angel Flight, and to tell you the truth, I've never ridden that. I wanted to, and then they moved it. So there was all these incredible machines around, and I got attracted. I realized I was like a moth. In nighttime, this is Broadway. This was the only place in Los Angeles that had stores and shopping. Wilshire Boulevard, Miracle Mile, what didn't exist then. And then you can see the railroad tracks, and it was fascinating to me. And my entertainment was this, the radio. And my imagination, I loved laying on drawing with the same, not the same ones, but as I got older, laying on the floor in the evening, my mother's ironing, and I'm listening to all these Green Arrow, Lone Ranger, Lights Out, which was very scary. And that graduated to what really started getting me interested in imaging. I realized there was no television, and in the late 40s there was, but we couldn't afford one. And we'd go to the theater, and the war was going on. And my uncles were in the war, my dad was in the war, and my dad got his citizenship papers in the service. After he did a stint, he was hit by his brother. My uncle died in Germany on the big push, and my grandma was still living in El Paso. She was a Native American, Mexican, Apache, and my dad was a mix. And I'm a mix. I thought I was Apache Indian and a Mexican, and I took that DNA test, and I found out I'm 70% Irish. And no wonder I like whiskey. And 25.5% Native American. But Native American, in those, you pay $100 for it. I could be an Eskimo or down a native from Ushuaia, Argentina, and down at the Tierra del Fuego. So yeah, you have to spend like $3,000 more to find out what tribe you're from, maybe. So in the Movie Town News, there was these, as a kid, I was, during the war, I was 6, 7 years old. And, where's my mouse here? Where did it go? Oh, there it is. So there was these amazing ships. This is Missouri, that it's in Oahu, where they signed the surrender to Japan, the aircraft carriers. With these planes, I loved these planes as a kid. It was kind of romantic because I wasn't seeing everybody getting killed. I would just hear about it, but see it on movie tone news. And I loved these planes with the mechanics of the wings and stuff, and that led to my future. But I remember seeing these guys all the time in movie tone news. I thought that would be really cool, but I never thought I could ever be one of these cameramen. After the war, I would take a streetcar for 10 cents down to the museum next to SC at the Coliseum, where the Olympics were in 1936. And in that museum was my favorite, these guys. And then as I grew older, I turned from looking at bones and dioramas and stuff to the art. And I don't know why I didn't put some of the art in there, but you've been in museums, you know what the art's like, and Rembrandt, and seeing all the different impressionists and stuff. And I started paying attention. I just love looking at the paintings and the color and the brushstrokes. And so what happened in 1951 is that we got our television, our first black and white television. So I started seeing these. They actually showed this. I got my film education. I've never been to film school. I've never been to art school except when I got to be about 27. Went to the Los Angeles College Art of Design at nighttime because I was working and couldn't do it during the day because by then I had 3 children. But in that movie, it was great because you could see the sets. It was innovative. I forgot when this was. Does anybody know what year this was made? I think it was in the 20s, late 20s. But then someone went and hand painted each frame, and it looked like this. So and all the sets were interesting, and this was the kind, to me, the first sci-fi that I saw. And with Busby Berkeley women lining up there. And it was just fascinating to me. And then I got to see this, Flash Gordon, and this wasn't Flash Gordon, but he started off as being Buck Rogers. Look at that control panel, how difficult that control panel is. So I got interested in all the mechanics, and then I started seeing this. I saw that. They actually, when I was a kid, when this came out, they had the robot. They said it was the real one, but I doubt it. It was kind of made out of rubber, but it was in the lobby of our little tiny theater called the Starlin in Lincoln Heights, Los Angeles. So, as again I said, there was The I Love Lucy came out, and I said, that's my parents. That's exactly what my parents are. And I felt good that being a mixed marriage and being mixed in LA, which was allowed, it wasn't allowed in most of the states of mixed marriages. So in 1955, I went to my first, I was in the Boy Scouts, and the group, I got selected with a bunch of different single boys to go to the group and go to Paramount Studio. And I walked through these gates, and I saw Danny Kaye come out of his dressing room in this wonderful set. I went, this is so cool that there's a set built, and behind it was just wood and supports holding it up. And the other side was stone walls, and he was walking really slow out there. And I went, why is he walking so slow? And I was so excited, I realized I was in the set I was in was about 115 degrees because the lights, the film was so small. The film was so slow as far as exposure. They had to put heavy arc lights to light the stuff, and heat came out of those lamps, and it was pretty brutal when I finally realized that. In 57, the Sputnik came out, and I had found a job. I worked in foundries to feed my kids. I did everything I could. I was making $36 a week in the foundry, and I kept my drafting board. I was trying to. I had 7 years of drafting in high school because I loved it so much. Because I'm so dyslexic that math and me were like this. I was over here, and math was clear over here, and English was the same thing. And English is my second language. Grunting and dragging my knuckles is my first language. So I was lucky enough to get a job drafting, and then I started. It was on-the-job training. They taught me printed circuit board design. They taught me computer building. I started doing that, and I got a job on the submarine. Whoops! Oh no, not that one. This one, and it's the atomic sub. They actually hired me through my career to write the manual for it was called the Mark II fire control system, and the computer I was helping design hardware with diodes, capacitors, resistors, all that kind of stuff, to check the launch before this came out of the ocean. And that moved me up to working on this project. I worked on the command module, that little tiny thing at the top, where the 3 astronauts were in. I worked on the wiring for that, and the second stage on this huge Saturn missile. And this was the second stage I was working on. The blueprints that I was helping with the designing the wiring that went through that, and the mock-up looked like this. A little far cry from Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers in that film that you saw. So in '66, I was kind of out of the aerospace business because we got to the moon, and I went into avionics in the industry. And while I was there, through hook and crook, I met this guy who said, "Let's go. You're going to Art Center in '66, '67." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "They have a film class there?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, let's tell them you're a film student. And I'm going to go shoot this boat race." So we went to Lake Havasu and shot this boat. And this is serendipitously how I became a cinematographer. Shooting the boat race, I was learning picture, we shot this in 16 millimeter ECO and reversal film, which was negative. It was actually, they made a print off of it. And used the work print, would call people in Hollywood, "What do we do now?" "Well, you need to put sound in it." And we had to wet gate it because we scratched the heck out of the original film, thinking it was work print, but it was the original film that they were going to print off of, so they wet gated it. While I was doing that film, I started working weekends because I loved the process. I loved editing. I loved nothing. There was nothing that existed until you shot, you processed the film, you edit it, you put sound, you put music on it, out comes a movie. And I was bit. So I was working on the HA-56 helicopter. And there was I was at a top secret clearance, and I had to be mustered, I had to be debriefed. They wanted to know where I was going, and I told them, I said, "Well, I got a job being a prop master in a Civil War movie, a low-budget Civil War movie, for 3 or 4 months, and I'm leaving. I was salaried, I had 42 people working under me, And I just left. I just dropped it to be a filmmaker. And then I starved for about 15 years and finally started going. But while I was there, I started this came out in 2001. Loved it. My cronies, we saw it, I think, 7 times. And then this came out. And it was a break. The studios were over-unionized. They were depressed. They weren't making that many great films. There were some, but not a lot. And that was still the time when there was an A movie and a B movie in the theaters. So that's it. So while that was going on, we took that boat race and wrote a story. We're not writers, so we wrote this story. I stole it from Along Came Bronson, a TV show, a guy on a motorcycle saving damsels in distress. And so I said, well, let's use that. Let's have a friend of ours, Gary Graver, who is a star in our film. So we made this. And we blew it up to 35. It cost $17,000. We found a distributor, and he made money. Then he gave us $35,000, and I made this silly comedy with a beautiful girl, and Arabs and camel. We had a camel. We rented a camel, and we put it in the stage for a close-up of the camel. And anybody ever been next to a camel? I was holding the 35 millimeter Arri and right in front of the camel, and the camel burped at me, and I almost threw up. It was so foul. It was just so filmmaking. So that $35,000, the distributors made money. We didn't make a dime. We just did salary. We owned a percentage of all these movies. Never saw a dime. I was having just so much fun. So that movie got us $80,000 to do this one. It didn't click. Where am I? This one. Machismo. And we said, what are we going to do? We got to make a picture right away so we can get a salary so we can feed our families. And I just saw the Magnificent Seven with Yul Brynner. And they stole it from Kurosawa on the Seven Samurai. And I said, well, then I can steal this. So I had, in the Magnificent Seven was a whole group, a buddy picture of bandits saving an American border town. And I said, let's take Mexican being part Mexican. I said, let's take a Mexican bandits, because I always just saw Mexicans as bad guys. Majas, we don't need no stinking Majas. Remember that one? Treasure of Sierra Madre. So I said, let's make them heroes and have them save an American town. So we wrote this thing. We're very good writers. But we moved on, and it broke the Pacific Drive-In Theater box office. And because LA was full of Latinos, and they'd never seen them being represented as heroes. And I had these vatos coming to me, and hey man, I really like the movie. And I said, don't shoot me. When they were in the drive-in, because we had the actors there so they could say hello, and it was really a great success. And then we started starving again, because we only made salary. We were waiting for the distributor to say, hey, you made a lot of money. It never happened. But it played on Hollywood Boulevard as a B movie next to Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. And I'm standing there on Hollywood Boulevard seeing our movie up there. And this was only in 3 years. We were really lucky, but we still weren't filmmakers. We were just copying. So that led to this. We did Machismo. It was a box office success. It had enough fighting in slow motion, and all I did was copy the slow motion against fast action, like the Wild Bunch was out, and we catered to that. We got a Gatling gun. When I was in New Mexico, we went to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And they said, hey, you know, there's a train up in Chama, which was about an hour and a half drive. And I went up there, and there was a bunch of model enthusiasts, train model enthusiasts, got together, put the money, and they rebuilt the steam engine. And now it's been a ride up there, and it's huge now. They only had one train, and they had the rolling stock. And I said, I want to rent. I was producing it and shooting it and art directing it. We didn't cut it. We finally hired an editor. We bought a script. He dusted it off, changed it to El Salvaje, and the distributor called it The Great Gundown. They'd won a Spanish title, I guess. And I got tired of producing, doing all of the producing work, because all I wanted to do was be a cameraman. And I had to do this so I could hire myself to teach myself cinematography. It was my love, it was my passion. And my partner was kind of going off. We had, in this movie, we had Dennis Hopper, Santa Fe. We had Dennis Hopper's crony actors coming down, and they gave everybody acid. And everybody was strange. And I still had my pocket protectors and my pens in my pocket from my aerospace days. So it was a kind of a gradual change of me thinking I was going to be a cinematographer. So I said, I'm going to quit producing. And I tried and told everybody the truth, and no one ever gave me any money. My partner could be laying in the gutter, and someone could come by and say, oh, excuse me, can I give you money for a movie? He was that kind of a guy. So I just said, no. And my family suffered a lot. And by then I had 4. I had 3 natural, and I adopted. My wife and I adopted a girl at 11. They put her up for adoption. And the only reason I said yes was that she was raised with my kids, because my in-laws were the most incredible human beings. They were foster parents, and the state would give them the kids that were thrown in the closet, as was my daughter, and left there because she was crying too much, and they were all druggies and stuff. And she didn't trust anybody. And I waited for 35 years before she actually gave me a hug, because she didn't want anybody near her. And now she's an incredible human being. She has a daughter, and my granddaughter, and now my great-granddaughter is 18. So that's a very blessing. So where am I? Oops. I hit too many buttons. So, starving. Through all this, I'm still working. I was a grip. I've done every position: producer, director, cameraman, editor, sound editor, special effects, visual effects. What else is there? The only thing actor. I finally got offered my SAG card because I helped a friend. I did, I think, 5 days in a director who was going to go into the DGA, and he went SAG. So he asked me to help him in a part, and I played an old roadie, which I was perfect for. And they said, okay, you can get your SAG card. And I said, well, how much is this going to cost? This was just like 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. And I said, how much is it going to cost? He said, oh, only $3,000. And I said, how long will this application last? He said, until you die. So you can join anytime you want. So just before I go off into the deep blue, I'm going to get my SAG card. So, and so starving and waiting, I met some producers. I worked really hard for this guy, and he introduced me to a company that was called Intern Financing. And Warner Brothers under the table would slip a production company the money to make a film, and then they go, oh, we like your film, we're going to distribute it. And in those days, what really helped us when we were making our movies, when we were trying to get investors, was the government was giving investors in film a 75% they could write off their company, whoever they were, They didn't have a company. They were just individuals. 75% of what they gave us to make the film for 5 years, every year. And that really boosted the independents, because the independents were starting to make a lot of money. And so I got this, and it was to be shot in Thailand. So at 35, I went off to Thailand to shoot this movie. Had a Jamaican director, a Thai camera crew, a Chinese stuntman, and Jim Kelly was in it. And he had just finished a movie called Enter the Dragon with Bruce Lee. So Warner Bros. Says, let's do a movie, let's do a karate movie with Jim Kelly, because they'll attach him to Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee had just died, I think I said. And it was so bad, this movie was so bad, that they turned it into a comedy. And I don't know how it did. I was thrilled just to be in Thailand. Got typhoid while I was there. And it survived that. So in 1977, by working hard and just kept pounding on the doors, just rejection is something you all have to get over when you're trying to be a filmmaker, an actor, a DP. You have to interview. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You just got to stop and move on. You have to just keep going. And if you have passion for what you're doing, somebody's going to see it eventually. So a friend of mine was producing a Japanese movie that was coming to the United States. They needed a Japanese crew and an American camera crew for B camera. That was a deal the union made. And this was 5 years after I got my union card. I still had to do bad independent films while I was looking for union work. Then I got this. So we can change the lights and bring the lights down.
You guys find it before I do, save some for me.
Down in the heart of hidden in the stars.
So before this, I used to take my film in a 400-foot reel with the soundtrack on my Mag 35 millimeter film that had the sound on it, and go pound on doors and door to door. I'd find the producers that I'm looking for people who are making films through the reporter and any paper I could find on who's in production, and they either had a projector with a sound Magstrike player on it, or they didn't. And the one who did that I remember was Stephen Cannon, who did A-Team and all those things, and he was doing Hunter. So a producer, I had done some sound, I had cut some sound for him, and I was a hard worker, and he knew I was a cameraman. And he wound up working for Stephen Cannon. It was union, and it was called Hunter, and with Fred Dreyer and Stephanie Kramer. And I went in there, and he said, "Ron, I need you. You're an independent filmmaker. You use very little lights. You use Fujifilm. It was a high-speed film, but it had the highest sensitivity than Kodak. So I graduated that because I didn't know how to use a lot of lights. And I walked my first day on lighting, and in the series of Hunter, I had there was a African American black, dark, and he wanted to wear white shirts, which is death to a cinematographer. It was all that contrast; you could hardly see detail. So the other cameraman that was shooting it was pounding these lights on. There were shadows everywhere; it didn't look natural. And I honored the natural look most of my career. That it could be strong, but you still had to know where the source came from. That was my mantra. Where is the light coming from? And everybody liked that. And after I did that, Michael Mann saw it, and he was doing Crime Story. He got kicked out of Chicago because he blew something up. It was an elevator shaft or something. He was crazy, man. I loved him. And he met me at a restaurant. He was picking up takeout to take to his kids from his office. He was a writer at the beginning of his career, and he was doing television. And he said, "I like what you're doing. I'm going to hire you to do Crime Story." I said, "Well, I've got 3 commercials." He said, "You want this job or not?" I said, "Yes, sir." And I had to quit the commercial, and they never called me again. And I went to Vegas and shot for a year, 10 months doing Crime Story. And he told me at that restaurant, sitting down, I'll remember this day, that he said, "I want you to hand me an extraordinary series visually, and don't give me a look-alike like all the other television shows," because there was a lot of bad-looking TV because of video. Cinematographers didn't know how to work film into telecine and video. They came out 400 lines, just 400 lines. Your iPhone has, what, 2,000, 4,000 lines? Or a smartphone. So if you didn't do things right, it kind of fell apart. When you saw Crime Story, the difference, because it's a little faded out and transfers, this is from a 3/4 inch. That was the masters that I could afford to get. So I tried to get this. Looks great on a retina screen or a good LED. The projection stuff, it has its faults because there's hardly any information on it. So he said, "I'd rather you fail and then give me a mundane look of your film." And he did. One time I just went way past my limit. I was experimenting. We had to shoot the whole sequence over again. And he did. Never said, "Hey, you idiot." He backed me up. And I love him for it. And then I went on to shoot a pilot for him called LA Takedown, which was, he was practicing to do Heat with, I don't know if anyone saw Heat. So what he saw in me was I was fast. He liked my look. It was natural, but yet had some drama to it. And that started got me into this one.
One thing has been troubling me. I sure as hell want to tell you.
Do you think that if you were falling in space, that you would slow down after a while or go faster and faster?
Faster and faster.
All around me. Now my shoes are so far away from me.
Aren't you going to fix me a drink?
So, 200 TV shows later, I was I did a lot of features, but none like Twin Peaks or Walk With Me. And so I remarried. I had my second wife wanted to have a child. I said, I already have 4. And I don't think so. We divorced over it after 3 years, and then I changed my mind and had a reversal vasectomy. And $85,000 later, we had our daughter. And I had to stay in town. She said, we're going to be family. You can't go off on features anymore. You can't go out of town. You got to stay in LA. And I went into television and stayed there until in between. I think I got 2 features or something. But great hype. You can go on the website on IMDb. Everybody knows that the Internet Movie Database.com, and I'm under Ronald Victor Garcia, cinematographer. I went on there. There's about 20,000 Ron Garcias on the internet now. So while I was doing this, I got about another 15 minutes here before Q&A. I started long ago when it was video. Digital hadn't come around. It was around, but it wasn't ready for prime time yet. And a lot of, in television, you have to move so fast. And you got to really think ahead. You got to play fast chess because directors change their mind. You're lighting some way. David Lynch taught me that to be loose, don't have a preconceived and stick to it and argue with everybody saying, I can't turn around. That's not the way I designed the lighting. I just went with the flow because David Lynch went with the flow. He used anything that happened, accidents, he put it in his movies. And I went, wow, that's a pretty good idea. So I learned how to track the sun. I learned I had X amount of time, and in television, who's the foul guy? There's always a foul guy in a company. And the DPs, the director of photographies, are the foul guys. If an actor goes and locks himself in a closet in the trailer, doesn't want to come out, which happened to me when I was directing. I directed for 10 years in television also. So you just had to make it up somehow. And then you had to cut the fat and you had to just keep going because one time I was behind directing at cinematography, and this woman did lock herself in a trailer. She had this meltdown. And we were at the Brown Air Force Base down in San Diego, and I had all the stuff to do. So there's a thing called a phone booth, to where you know as a director and the DP knows that if they run out of time or out of light, they can always do a quick scene somewhere that the DP can control in lighting, which is called a phone booth. So we would take the phone booth with us. And as a director, you knew, okay, I'm going to make time and I'm going to put that scene in, change it to a different location, do a quick lighting job and get it out. So it's tough. Also the directors, when I was a DP, they would say, you know, I'm on a big crane shot. I said, I can't help you there. You're going to have to talk to the producer because they don't want to spend $125 to get a Titan crane in to get your camera up there. And it takes time, it's consuming, and it's expensive. So video was really starting to come into play with these video cameras. And they had little jib booms, and it was really happening. And what was driving those small cameras was the pornography business, to tell you the truth. Panasonic told me that. He said, we're not listening to you in the ASC, we're listening to the guys who were out there making these sex films. And I went, whoa, all right. So I found this, and I would cut a Panasonic VH something 200 into a motion picture camera, Panavision camera that cost $250,000. And because it was video, it was saving grace because this is what it looked like. This is all done net. There's no light. I used a light that was in the hotel. I said, if we can do this faster, the director, I said, we can get in there and get out. It's a short scene, and if you shoot it at this time of the day, because you look at the sun, I had X amount of time, I said, we could do it in an hour. This whole scene, shoot the whole thing in an hour with your coverage. And there wasn't a lot of coverage, we blocked it, so there wasn't. The blocking meaning arranging the actors and the camera so that you could save editing and have them move into the edit position as opposed to staying where they are. And didn't tell the network I was doing this, and I didn't want them to know because they would say no, because they just weren't thinking into the future. And here's the scene. There's no artificial lighting in this. Come on, work.
Take a look at this. It's like recon for the last few jobs.
So that was the scene. Got it now when I was a hero. So being a cinematographer and you're in television, well, gee, I'm a television cinematographer. I'm not shooting features anymore. But I got more people saw my work in the 25 years I was in television than feature guys who the feature comes at last and it goes to television now. But then there wasn't all the cable programs they have now. It was just ABC, NBC, CBS, and then eventually Fox. So, and each week the productions were costing $8 million. And I got all the toys and I could sneak in my work. I could kind of experiment because I shot every day. Because when I started making features and wanted to be a cameraman and was learning camera, I'd do a feature every year and a half and starve in between, doing all kinds of different work to feed my family. And by the time I got into the feature, I actually forgot how I did the last one. But in television, every day, different scenes, different directors. It was a blessing to me. And it got me a house in the Pacific Palisades in California, overlooking the ocean and the mountains. So I can't complain. And so then eventually I got this. And I was talking to a young filmmaker from Israel, and I was telling him I was going to come here. And I said, what would you ask me? We're going to have a Q&A. And what would you say? They're great filmmakers. They were doing music videos in Israel, came here, and now they're married, they got a baby, and they're having the same problems I had. And I said, just keep going. Don't let that be an excuse. There's sacrifices everywhere. And you have to have a family, which I thanked in front of 1,600 people when I got my cinematography award at the ASC a couple of years ago. As a television career achievement award. And I had my whole family there, and I apologized to them. I'm going to cry right now thinking about it. And they said that they loved me, and they were really proud of me. And they suffered a lot. We all did. And it was worth it to me, and I think worth it to them, because they saw, I'm not going into the film business. So, here's the difference. This is the action. Leave the lights out. I'm going to go right to the next one. No CGI. These are all real stunts. All those people ran up to that fire and the whole deal, and they couldn't. The show would never do CGI, and all the effects and all the car chases are all real. The only thing that isn't real in Hawaii Five-0 is the two stars driving in the car, bickering at each other. Is done on the stage. And here's the my version. And by the way, I edited all these, and because I love editing, and I keep my fingers in editing and doing this. Oops. Hawaiian Airlines was a sponsor, and they wanted to see that plane. You can see the difference that some's a little blown out, but what you've been looking at, you're at the mercy of projection and density and contrast and stuff. But this is digital. And you can kind of see the difference in some of everything else you saw was film. But digital looks really good. I've fallen in love with digital. I apologize for the blown out stuff, but I'm going to leave you with this. I did a seminar in 2012 with ASC members at the University of Hawaii, Manoa, and I had speakers from the ASC, much more eloquent than I am, and Willie, the ICE, and I asked him to come and say a few words. And it was so inspiring to the people who attended. I thought I'd share that with you and end with this.
Hello, everybody. Man, thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure to be here. I want to thank Ron Dim and everybody who put this event on, and I'm grateful to be invited here. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to speak on, but I just want to say, it's been the biggest blessings, it's been one of the biggest blessings in my life to be part of Hawaii Five-0. It's a big production. A lot of stuff I don't understand in the production and in Hollywood and how everything goes, but it's just been a big blessing, and it's also one of the best learning experiences in my life, just to be on the set. And it's been like that ever since I started my acting career as an extra. I mean, I always tell the people who's interested in this industry now is, don't look at what the extra get paid. It's about being able to be on the field and watching everybody do their thing right in the front of you, and it's the best learning experience you can get, because you're watching the best do their thing. And I wanted to say, like, in my experience, I learned really quickly as I was on the set. Excuse me. I learned to watch and listen and observe the DPs, the directors, and I've been doing this for like 20 years, and it took me like 10 to 15 years to figure out what to do. I mean, how to do this business, and how to be part of this business, I think I should say. And I figured it out by just, I told myself, every time you're on the set, you should just watch and listen. Don't say nothing. And as I started doing that, I started learning so much in a short period of time. One thing important I can tell you I learned on who to watch. I watched the director, and I watched the main actors, of course, and I figure out, I just sit there and meditate and see what do these people want? What are they trying to get in this scene? And the more I observed, the more compliments I got on my acting. So, I knew it was the thing to do, and so I want to say, without their help, if you're not observing the DP and talking to the directors and the camera guys, and you'd be totally confused on set. I learned to just listen to the director, exactly what he wants. I said, yes, I'll give it to you. And I learned to go up to him before I started to say, if I had any questions, I'll ask the director there. I'll ask him, what do you want? What do you really need from me? I need to know. And as soon as he tell me, I just do exactly what they tell me, and then the rest is history. All of a sudden, now I'm a celebrity. So, I want to thank you guys again. If anything I can leave with that, and I was sitting here listening to the DPs, and I was like, man, that's great advice. And I thank you guys for sharing it with all of us, because it could come it will come handy in every one of our careers sitting in here. And again, I thank you for the law, and thank you for having me.
Willie speaks for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you to Ron. So we have about 10 minutes of room for Q&A. I'm going to start us off just to get things rolling. Let me take this mic out. I'm going to ask Ron a question, and we're going to open it up to the audience. Unfortunately, we don't have a wireless roaming mic, so I'm going to ask you to raise your hands. I'll choose you, and you'll holler your question out, and I'll repeat it, so apologies for that. But Ron, throughout your 4 decades of work in this industry, what has been the biggest surprise to you?
That I'm still alive. I think the biggest surprise to me was when I got my cinematography award for television. It was very emotional, which I get when I think about it. But what happened was when I got the award, I had to write a speech. My daughters helped me, and when I had finished, I was so nervous that they introduced me. They showed some of my work, and everybody started. They said, "That's your cue when it finishes. Come on up to the stage." So I come up to the stage, and I'm walking up the stage out of the corner of my eye. 1,600 people were standing up applauding me. And I just went, whoa. And it blew me away. You can see I'm choking, I'm just thinking about it. But it was incredible. It was worth all of it.
Thank you. So I'm going to open it up. Yes, Joey, right there in the front.
I'm curious what your workflow is like throughout your career. Were you storyboarding? Were you operating the camera throughout your career? What did that look?
Great. I'll repeat if you're wrong. Don't worry, you don't have to strain. So Joey asked his workflow throughout his career, the storyboards, kind of how he actually has process.
All of the above. It depends on the show. I used to storyboard all of my work when I was my producer and myself and all coming from aerospace. Yeah, it's cheap to put everything on paper because you got to throw it away and start all over again. And you have to have a plan, but you also have to have a plan to change in a millisecond and not stick to. If it can't be done, you move on and try and figure out at the moment what you can do to make your day, make your budget, and still make the film. So it's a lot of prep, it's a lot of pre-visualization. And those that I find in all the departments, they have the knack to pre-visualize everything. And all our meetings, everybody's taking notes and drawing, and it's an incredible thing because it's part of the creativity. That's the process of storyboarding, thinking ahead, closing your eyes, and seeing something that doesn't exist and see it come to fruition. And if it's not, you don't panic, you just change it because that's what life does. And you just go with the flow.
Thank you. Do we have another question? Cannot see. Anyone else? Question? Yeah, right there in the front.
I really appreciate how your style changed from kidnapping women to loving them. And have you seen changes in the culture of the film industry in how women and people of color are treated and killed and kidnapped? And how has that affected your work, especially as a passion person?
Great. So the question was progress, really, from the start of his career to now in the last 40 years, and how women, people of color, are represented in cinema, and your thoughts on that.
And starting off as an independent, there was no prejudice, and we were all just kids just trying to make it do. But when I got into the industry, there was a wall. I had a wall with my last name, but half my crew, I started hiring women. My first assistant camera woman was with me for 13 years, and the next one was with me for 12 years. And the women, to me, were smarter than us. They didn't drag their knuckles. There was not a lot of testosterone in there. They were tough, though. I mean tough, and they didn't take any guff. And I love all the guys and women that I hired of color. I did Oprah's first narrative in Chicago, and she had, it was an all-black company, and she was great, and she embraced me like I was, the top DP of the world, which I wasn't. And she would give her office workers a college education. She was just an amazing person, but there was, and the more and more ethnic, I saw in the years coming up, and they're giving more parts, whether they're Black, Asian, Hispanic. Hispanics are a little behind, but it's getting open. I think corporations that own the movie industry now see that and embrace that. So it's getting stronger and better.
I am going to use that as a springboard to plug that our next film block is our emerging filmmakers block, and all of the filmmakers in that block are women, which is great. Exciting. We do have time for another question. Does anybody have one? Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Ron, do you have any idea, any suggestions, thoughts as to how Hawaii could become a stronger force in production in the local industry here?
Great question. So it was any suggestions for how Hawaii specifically, because we're isolated, we don't have we don't have an industry built in. It's coming, but not like the mainland does. So the question was advice on how we can continue to build the industry here.
Yeah, I've been active in mentoring here in where I moved to in New Mexico. It's education. It's trying to get the school system to make it part of their core and to embrace and try not to teach someone to go off to Hollywood or off somewhere else, is to teach them craft and all the crafts of motion picture making so they can do it right here on the islands. That's what I love about this festival. It's all Hawaiian made. And it's hard, it's political. There are a lot of schools that are underfunded. We need more of the community, all the different communities everywhere, as they're doing in third world countries. I worked in Africa for 6 months, working for Johns Hopkins, and I was teaching and shooting. On weekends, I was teaching my crew lighting techniques and stuff, and Johns Hopkins is very heavy into that. So Africa's doing it well, and we need more. All the different cities and stuff need to get to the government and say this is needed. Art is education also. It's activism. It's creative, and it should be right up there with math. The 3 R's.
Thank you. Thanks for asking that question, John. And we do have tomorrow at 10 a.m. A filmmaking panel completely built on that concept. It's a panel on community-based filmmaking and how we can grow the community and the arts here in Hawaii instead of, that happens naturally with some of our top talent as they start to come up. They're hungry and we don't have enough work for them, and so they leave. So we're going to be talking about that a lot tomorrow. So with that, we have time for one more question. Who's got it? Can't really see. Trying. Any hands? Yeah. Yes, Nathan.
Curious on your experience working with surrealism generation. How do you transfer that surrealism to thoughts to the screen?
Great. So the question was, when you were working on Twin Peaks, the surrealism there, how you translated that onto the screen. How you translated how surreal Twin Peaks is, how you kind of incorporated that into your own cinematography style. Oh. So how you translated the surrealism of Twin Peaks into your own cinematography.
Oh, that's a good question. I really didn't try. I followed Lynch and got into his head with dialogue and the way he spoke to his actors, he spoke to me. For instance, all he said to me was, "We're going to go out in the woods, and I want it warm. Just warm, Ron." He talks like a Boy Scout, and from Nebraska or something. And I said, "Warm," and I had just finished a movie about after the World War II in above ground testing atomic bombs called Nightbreaker. With Martin Sheen and Neil Estevez. Everybody took a cut. It was a work of love. And so I had dailies of that, and I took it to him, and he goes, "Well, okay, that's warm, but we got to work on the color." So we did some tests, and when I was at the lab up in Seattle, I kept putting all these different filters in and the timing, and it got, and we'd show it to David. David would go, no, that's not warm. And it turned almost orange yellow. And the lab says, I can't print this out. That David will never work again. I said, print it. And took it over there. David said, perfect. And so what happened with the look, it wasn't surreal. It was David's directing, and the actors, and Balamente, David would also write the music with him. And that gave it a different flavor. It hit the psyche of the subconscious. David is a transcendental who he meditates at lunchtime. And what happened when I pushed all that color through, trying to get to David's color, because he's also a painter. He started off as an artist. He's always an artist first, and he put his art into filmmaking when he went to AFI. So what happened was all these warm yellows and reds went into the layers of the blacks in my contrast, and it changed the tonality. Instead of doing blue, gray, and spooky and all that stuff, we went the other way, or David wanted me to go the other way, and I got it. And basically just shot it kind of normal with a little different kind of film language in millimeters, from wide to tight, but mostly wide. And when we were doing the pilot, he said, well, let's do this, and let's put on the 60. And I said, David, that's television, the screen's too small. Because we didn't have these big 42-inch LEDs. Everybody just had a regular television set. It was in the 1:3 aspect ratio. He goes, no, Ron, it's got to be wide. And one quickly is that how he directed me, like with the actors, there was we were shooting a mill they were going to tear down after we shot there, because they ran out of big trees. It was a mill that cut these monster redwood trees. There aren't any left. And so the mill was going to be torn down. I said, let's do our tile sequence. And just pan, I was operating, and he said, just pan down the river. I'm going to put credits on there, and then just go up to the mill. And the mill was so far away, when I got up there, the smoke coming out of the mill, it looked like it was slow motion. And David we had a video tap on the camera, so he could see what I was shooting. And I pan, and he goes, go slower. And I start again, and I pan what I thought was slow, and he goes, Ron, no, slower. And so I was barely moving the camera, or I was still kind of moving what I thought was a good, because there's a ratio of speed and pan with the shutter and the camera, and it could do mad artifacts, especially transferring to video. So I thought I was at panning speed. He goes, Ron, think underwater. And I got it. And so I thought underwater. There was underwater, moving, you know how you can move underwater, it's slow. And he goes, perfect.
Thank you. So hey Ron, as a token of appreciation, the festival has for you this proclamation from the County of Hawaii and signed by Mayor Harry Kim that deems you an official lifetime honorary supporter of Made in Hawaii film. Yeah, thank you so much.
America.